The doorbell rang right in the middle of Sunday dinner, and I watched my daughter Brianna's face twist up like she'd bitten into a lemon. We were all squeezed around my dining room table, the good china out like always, when this white man in an expensive suit appeared at my screen door with a leather briefcase that probably cost more than my car. "Mrs. Washington?" he called through the screen. "I'm Robert Fletcher from Horizon Development Corporation. I apologize for the intrusion, but I need to speak with you about a time-sensitive matter regarding your property on Route 47. My son Kevin dropped his fork. My other son Darnell stopped chewing mid-bite. Brianna's eyes got wide as dinner plates. "Mama, who is that?" Brianna whispered, but I was already standing up, my knees creaking like old stairs. "Y'all excuse me for a minute," I said, wiping my hands on my apron. I walked to the door with my heart doing something funny in my chest. Mr. Fletcher smiled at me through the screen like we were old friends, but his eyes had that hungry look I'd seen before on people who wanted something they couldn't have. "Mrs. Washington, I'll get straight to the point. Your property, the one you recently inherited from Clayton Moore, sits directly in the path of the new commercial corridor. We've been trying to acquire the surrounding parcels, and yours is the final piece we need." He pulled out a folder from his briefcase. "I'm prepared to make you an offer right now, $8 million cash closing in 30 days. The world went sideways for a second. Behind me, I heard chairs scraping, footsteps rushing. My children appeared like vultures circling a carcass. "Did he say 8 million? Kevin's voice cracked like he was 13 again. "For that old farm?" Darnell pushed past me to the door. "The one with the falling down barn?" Mr. Fletcher's smile got tighter. "That's correct. The land value has appreciated significantly due to the city's expansion plans." Brianna grabbed my arm so hard it hurt. "Mama, tell him yes. Tell him yes right now." But I just stood there, looking at this stranger on my porch, and then back at my 3 children, their faces full of dollar signs and greed. And I thought about how we got here. How 3 months ago, these same children had called that farm a burden and a joke. "I'll need to think about it," I heard myself say. Before we continue, please comment below, as I'd love to hear your thoughts, and subscribe to the channel to help us hit that big 1,000 subscriber milestone. Let me take you back to where this all started, back to a cold February morning when Pastor Williams called to tell me my grandfather had passed. My name is Dorothy Washington, but everybody calls me Dot. I'm 72 years old, worked 30 years as a nurse at County General before I retired, and I raised 3 children by myself after their father decided family life wasn't for him. I gave those kids everything. Put them through college, helped with down payments on their houses, babysat their children while they built their careers. I thought I'd done right by them. Turns out, I'd raised 3 strangers who saw me as nothing but a bank account with a pulse. Granddaddy Clayton was 97 when he died. He'd been living in a nursing home for the last 5 years, his mind mostly gone, trapped somewhere between 1952 and yesterday. I visited him every Sunday after church, even though he didn't always remember my name. Sometimes he called me Sally, his late wife. Sometimes he called me Dorothy, my mama who died when I was young. But he always smiled when I came in, and that was enough. The farm had been in our family since Reconstruction. My great-great-grandfather bought that land with money he saved working in the lumber mills, 200 acres of red Georgia clay that grew cotton first, then corn, then mostly just weeds and regret. By the time Granddaddy got too old to work it, the place had gone to seed. The barn was half collapsed, the farmhouse had holes in the roof, and the fields were overgrown with kudzu and pine saplings. When the lawyer read the will, I was the only one there. Granddaddy left me everything, the whole 200 acres, with a handwritten note that said, "Dorothy always loved this land. She'll know what to do with it." I cried in that lawyer's office, not because I wanted the farm, but because out of all his grandchildren and great-grandchildren, I was the only one who'd shown up for him at the end. The only one who'd sat with him through the confusion and the fear and the slow fade of his memory. I told my children about the inheritance that Sunday at dinner. I'd made a pot roast, collard greens, macaroni and cheese, cornbread, the whole spread. They came over with their families, my grandchildren Aaliyah and Jordan running through my house like tornadoes, and for a minute, everything felt normal, felt like family. "So, Granddaddy Clayton passed," I said once we'd all settled at the table. "Funeral's on Saturday." Brianna nodded, scrolling through her phone. "That's sad, Mama. How old was he?" 97, and he left me his farm." Kevin looked up from his plate. "The old place out on Route 47? That dump?" "It's not a dump," I said, even though it kind of was. "It's our family history." Darnell laughed, actually laughed. "Mama, that place has been falling apart for 20 years. What are you supposed to do with 200 acres of dirt and ruins?" "I don't know yet. I thought maybe I'd—" "You should sell it," Brianna interrupted. "Get whatever you can for it and be done with it. That land's not worth anything. It's too far from the city, the soil's probably ruined, and renovating those buildings would cost a fortune." "Your grandfather wanted me to have it," I said quietly. "Granddaddy Clayton didn't know what year it was half the time," Kevin said. "No offense, Mama, but this is just one more thing for you to worry about. Let us help you. We can find a buyer, get you a few $1,000s, and you can use that money for something actually useful." "Like what?" I asked. He shrugged. "I don't know. A cruise? A new car? You could help Brianna with her kitchen renovation." My daughter perked up at that. "Oh, Mama, if you did sell, we could really use some help with the house. We're putting in granite countertops and—" "I'm not selling," I said. The table went quiet. 3 pairs of eyes stared at me like I'd lost my mind. "Mama, be reasonable," Darnell said, in that tone he used at his corporate job, the one that said he was smarter than everybody else in the room. "That farm is a liability. Property taxes, insurance, maintenance. You can't handle all that on your fixed income. The smart thing is to unload it while you can." I said I'm not selling. "Why not?" Brianna's voice had an edge to it now. "What are you going to do with it? You're 72 years old. You can't farm. You can barely keep up with your own yard." That stung because it was true. My knees hurt, my back hurt, I got tired easier than I used to. But that didn't mean I was helpless. "Maybe I'll keep it," I said. "Maybe I'll visit it on weekends. Maybe I'll just sit on the porch of that old farmhouse and remember when things were good." Kevin shook his head. "This is crazy. You're being sentimental about a piece of property that's literally worthless." "It's not worthless to me." "Mama," Brianna leaned forward, her voice dripping with fake sweetness. "We're just trying to help you. We don't want you to be burdened with this. Let us take care of it for you." And there it was. Let us take care of it. Not let us help you. Let us take care of it. Like I was a child who couldn't be trusted with my own decisions. "I appreciate your concern," I said, standing up from the table. "But the farm is mine, and I'll decide what to do with it." I walked to the kitchen, my hands shaking as I started clearing dishes. Behind me, I heard them whispering, probably talking about how stubborn I was, how difficult, how I never listened to reason. None of them came to the funeral on Saturday. Brianna said she had a work commitment. Kevin said his kids had a soccer tournament. Darnell didn't even bother with an excuse, just sent a text that said, "Can't make it." I stood at that graveside with Pastor Williams and 2 old men from Granddaddy's nursing home, and I wondered when my children had become people I didn't recognize. After the funeral, I drove out to the farm for the first time in probably 15 years. The gate was rusted and barely hung on its hinges. The driveway was so overgrown I had to park on the road and walk in. The farmhouse was worse than I remembered. Windows broken, front porch sagging, vines growing up the sides like the earth was trying to reclaim it. But standing there in the afternoon sun, looking out over those fields, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Peace. Connection. Like Granddaddy was standing right beside me, telling me I'd made the right choice. I walked the property line, pushing through brush and brambles, until I came to the eastern edge where the land bordered Route 47. And that's when I saw it, the thing that made everything make sense. The surveyor's stakes. Dozens of them, orange and pink flags marking a line that cut right through the middle of the property. And beyond them, on the neighboring parcel that used to belong to the Johnson family, bulldozers and excavators sat silent in the fading light. I pulled out my phone and did what I should have done weeks ago. I Googled Route 47 development and started reading. The city had announced plans for a major commercial corridor 6 months ago. The project was already approved, already funded, and according to the articles I found, they were buying up land at premium prices to make way for shopping centers, office parks, and a new highway interchange. My worthless farm sat right in the middle of the proposed development zone. I started laughing right there in the overgrown field, laughing so hard tears ran down my face. My children thought I was a foolish old woman holding on to a worthless piece of history. They had no idea I was sitting on a gold mine. But I didn't tell them. Something in me, maybe pride, maybe hurt, maybe just plain stubbornness, made me keep that information to myself. Instead, I let them keep calling, keep pressuring me to sell. "Mama, I found a guy who'll give you $5,000 for the land," Kevin said one evening when he called. "I know it's not much, but it's better than nothing." "No, thank you," I said. "Mama, please," Brianna begged during another call. "We're just trying to help you. That farm is draining your resources. Just let it go." "I'm not ready to let it go." Darnell tried a different approach. He showed up at my house with papers, a sales contract already drawn up. "I had my lawyer draft this. We can handle everything for you. All you have to do is sign." I looked at that contract, at my son standing in my living room like he owned the place, and something cold settled in my chest. "Get out," I said quietly. "What?" "I said get out of my house, and don't come back unless you're ready to respect my decisions." He left, slamming the door hard enough to rattle the pictures on my walls. The phone calls became less frequent after that. The visits stopped altogether. My own children iced me out because I wouldn't do what they wanted. Because I wouldn't hand over what was mine so they could profit from it. It hurt. Lord, it hurt more than I want to admit. But it also opened my eyes. I started spending more time at the farm. I hired a local boy, Jamie Thompson, to help me clear some of the brush and patch the worst holes in the roof. I didn't have much money to pay him, but he was sweet and didn't seem to mind working for whatever I could spare. Sometimes I'd pack us lunch, fried chicken and potato salad, and we'd eat on the porch while he told me about his plans to study engineering. "My mama says I'm wasting my time helping you," Jamie said one afternoon. "Says you should just sell this place." I smiled. Everybody's got an opinion about what I should do. "But it's your land," he said. "Your choice." "That's right," I said. "My choice." Pastor Williams came to visit me one Sunday after service. We sat on my back porch, drinking sweet tea and watching the birds. "Your children haven't been to church in weeks," he said gently. "I know. They're angry with you. I know that too." He was quiet for a while. Then he said, "Dorothy, I've known you for 30 years. You're one of the strongest women I know. But sometimes strength means knowing when to let go." "And sometimes," I said, "it means knowing what to hold on to." He nodded slowly. "Just make sure you're holding on for the right reasons." I thought about that a lot. Was I keeping the farm out of spite? Out of hurt? Or because it really meant something to me? The answer came the next time I visited the property. I was standing in the old farmhouse, in what used to be Granddaddy's bedroom, looking at the view of the fields through the broken window. The sun was setting, painting everything gold and orange, and I could almost see him there, young and strong, working that land with his bare hands. This wasn't just dirt and broken buildings. This was my history, My family's blood and sweat and dreams. And I'd be damned if I let my children sell it for pennies because they couldn't see past their own greed. So I waited. I watched the construction creep closer. I saw the developers' trucks driving past the property, saw them meeting with neighbors, saw parcel after parcel get sold and cleared. And then, 3 months after Granddaddy died, I invited my children to Sunday dinner. They came, probably because they thought I'd finally come to my senses. They brought their families, put on their fake smiles, told me how much they'd missed me. We sat down to eat, pot roast and collard greens just like old times, and for a minute, I let myself pretend everything was okay. And that's when the doorbell rang. That's when Robert Fletcher appeared with his briefcase and his $8 million offer. That's when everything changed. Now I'm standing in my dining room, watching my children practically climb over each other to get to that developer, watching them smile and shake his hand like they have any say in this decision. Mr. Fletcher looks past them, looks directly at me, waiting for an answer. "Mrs. Washington," he says, "do you need a moment to discuss this with your family?" Kevin is already nodding. Yes, give us a minute." But I'm not looking at Kevin. I'm looking at Brianna, who 3 months ago called this farm a burden. At Darnell, who tried to trick me into signing it away. At all 3 of them, who stopped visiting, stopped calling, stopped treating me like their mother because I wouldn't do what they wanted. "No," I say clearly. "I don't need to discuss it with anyone." And the look on their faces, the panic and desperation and sudden realization that they might have made a terrible mistake, that look alone is almost worth more than $8 million. Almost. "Mr. Fletcher," I say, and my voice is steady as stone, "I'm going to need some time to think about your offer." Mr. Fletcher's eyebrows went up just a fraction, but he recovered quick. "Of course. This is a major decision. How much time do you need?" "A week," I said, even though I already knew my answer. I just wanted to watch my children squirm a little longer. "Mama, wait," Brianna started. But I held up my hand. "Mr. Fletcher, thank you for coming by. You can reach me at this number." I wrote my phone number on a napkin and handed it to him through the screen door. "I'll have an answer for you by next Sunday." He took the napkin, gave me a respectful nod, and walked back to his black Mercedes parked in my driveway. The second his car pulled away, all 3 of my children started talking at once. "Mama, are you insane? You need to call him back right now." $8 million, Mama. Do you understand what that means?" I walked back to the table and sat down, picked up my fork, and took a bite of my pot roast like nothing had happened. It had gone cold, but I chewed it anyway. "Mama!" Kevin slammed his hand on the table, making the dishes jump. "Did you hear what that man said?" $8 million. "I heard him just fine," I said. "My hearing's not gone yet." "Then why didn't you say yes?" Brianna's voice was getting shrill. "Why do you need to think about it?" I set my fork down and looked at each of them. "Because 3 months ago, you told me this farm was worthless. You told me I was being foolish and sentimental. You stopped talking to me because I wouldn't sell it for $5,000. Now suddenly it's worth $8 million, and you're all very interested in my decision." The silence that followed was thick enough to cut with a knife. Darnell cleared his throat. "Mama, we didn't know." "No, you didn't know because you didn't care to know. You didn't care about what that land meant to me or to our family. You just wanted it gone so you wouldn't have to think about it anymore." "That's not fair," Brianna said, but her voice was weak. "What's not fair," I said, standing up again because I couldn't sit still anymore, "is that my own children only show up when there's money involved. What's not fair is that I spent my whole life sacrificing for you, and the minute I wanted to keep something for myself, you all turned your backs on me." "Mama, we were just trying to help." "Help?" The word came out sharp. "You were trying to help yourselves, and now you're mad because I might actually benefit from the decision I made." Kevin's face went hard. So what, you're going to keep it? Turn down $8 million out of spite? I didn't say that. Then what are you saying? Darnell demanded. I'm saying I need time to think. I'm saying this is my decision, not yours. I'm saying that for once in my life, I'm going to do what's best for me, not what's convenient for my children. Brianna started crying, those fake tears she'd used since she was 5 years old to get what she wanted. Mama, I'm sorry. We're all sorry. We should have supported you. But this is a blessing. Can't you see that? God is providing for you in your old age. Don't you dare bring God into this, I said quietly. Where was all this concern 3 months ago when you called this place a dirt patch? Nobody had an answer for that. They left shortly after, loading up their kids and their wounded pride. Brianna hugged me at the door, whispering, "Please make the right choice, Mama," like she had any idea what the right choice was. Kevin didn't say goodbye at all. Darnell paused on the porch and said, "You know we love you, right?" I just closed the door. The next morning, my phone started ringing at 7 a.m. It was Brianna. "Mama, I've been thinking. If you do sell the farm, we should probably talk about how to handle the money. You'll need financial advice, estate planning, tax strategies." "I haven't decided to sell yet," I said. "But when you do..." "Goodbye, Brianna." I hung up. Kevin called an hour later. "Mama, I talked to a financial advisor friend of mine. He says with $8 million properly invested, you could live like a queen for the rest of your life. You could travel, buy a new house, whatever you want." "That's nice," I said. "And of course, you'd probably want to help your children and grandchildren. College funds, down payments, things like that." There it was. The real reason for the call. "Kevin, if and when I sell that farm, what I do with the money is my business." "But Mama, we're family." "Then act like it." I hung up on him too. Darnell waited until that evening. He showed up at my door with Chinese takeout and that smooth corporate smile. "Thought you might not feel like cooking," he said, holding up the bags. I let him in because I was hungry and I did like Chinese food. We ate in silence for a while, kung pao chicken and fried rice, before he finally got to the point. "Mama, I owe you an apology, a real one, not the half-hearted thing I said yesterday." I waited. "I should have trusted your judgment about the farm. You were right to hold on to it, and I was wrong to pressure you." He paused, pushing rice around his plate. "But I'm worried about you. $8 million is a lot of money. You'll have people coming out of the woodwork, trying to take advantage of you. Scammers, fake investment schemes, relatives you haven't heard from in years asking for loans." "Like my own children?" I asked. He had the decency to look ashamed. "Fair point. But Mama, I'm serious. You need protection. You need a good lawyer, a financial advisor you can trust. Let me help you with that." "And I suppose you already have someone in mind?" "Well, yes, but..." "Darnell, baby, I appreciate your concern, but I've been managing my own finances for 50 years. I think I can handle it." "Not like this. This is different." He wasn't wrong about that. I'd never had money like this before. The most I'd ever had in my savings account was maybe $15,000, and that was after years of careful budgeting. 8 million was a number I couldn't even really imagine. But I also knew my son. Knew that behind that concern was a calculating mind, figuring out how to benefit from this windfall. "I'll think about it," I said, which was becoming my standard answer to everything. He left frustrated, and I sat in my quiet house wondering if I was being paranoid or realistic. Were my children really that greedy? Or was I being unfair, judging them harshly because I was hurt? The answer came the next day when Pastor Williams called. "Dorothy, I need to talk to you about something. Can you come by the church?" I drove over that afternoon, my stomach tight with worry. Pastor Williams had been my spiritual advisor for 3 decades. If he was concerned about something, it was serious. He met me in his office, looking older than usual, tired around the eyes. Sit down, Sister Dorothy. Can I get you some water? Just tell me what's wrong. He sighed heavy. Your daughter came to see me yesterday, Brianna. My hands went cold. What did she want? She wanted me to talk to you about the farm. She's worried, she says. Worried that you're not thinking clearly, that you might make a rash decision. She asked me to counsel you to accept the developer's offer and to let your children help you manage the money. I felt something break inside me. She came to you? To manipulate me through my pastor? I don't think she sees it that way, he said gently. I think she genuinely believes she's looking out for you. But Dorothy, I have to be honest with you. The way she talked about that money, the plans she already has for it, it troubled me. What kind of plans? She mentioned paying off her house, funding her children's college, maybe buying a vacation property. She talked about how this money could change your whole family's life. He leaned forward. She never once asked what you wanted to do with it. I closed my eyes. Did you tell her you'd talk to me? I told her I'd pray on it. And I have been praying, Dorothy. Praying for wisdom for you and for your family to find their way back to what matters. And what do you think I should do? He smiled, sad and knowing. I think you already know what you're going to do. I think you've known all along. The question isn't what you should do with the money. The question is whether you can forgive your children for showing you who they really are. That hit me like a punch to the chest. Because he was right. I could handle the greed, the manipulation, even the betrayal. What I couldn't handle was the loss of the illusion that my children loved me for me and not for what I could give them. I drove to the farm after that, needing to be somewhere quiet to think. Jamie was there, hammering new boards onto the porch steps. Mrs. Washington! He jumped up, wiping sweat from his forehead. I wasn't expecting you today. Just needed to get away for a bit, I said, sitting down on the porch rail. How's it coming? Good. Real good. I reinforced the steps and I've been working on the worst spots in the roof. Give me another month and this place will be solid enough to use again. I looked at this young man, barely 20 years old, working in the hot sun on a broken-down farmhouse for minimum wage, and I felt a wave of affection for him. He didn't want anything from me except honest pay for honest work. He didn't have an agenda or a scheme. He was just kind. Jamie, can I ask you something? Yes, ma'am. If someone offered you a lot of money for something that meant a lot to you, something with history and memories, would you sell it? He thought about it, serious-like. Depends on how much money and how important the memories are. But mostly, I'd think about what I'd do with the money versus what I'd lose by selling. Some things can't be replaced, you know? Yeah, I said. I know. We sat there quiet for a while, listening to the birds and the wind in the trees. Then Jamie said, Mrs. Washington, can I tell you something? My daddy died when I was 12. Heart attack, sudden-like. And after he was gone, everybody had opinions about what my mama should do. Sell the house, move to something smaller, this and that. But she kept our house because it was where she felt closest to him, where his memory lived. He picked at a splinter in the porch rail. She didn't have much money. Sometimes we struggled. But she never regretted keeping that house. She said some things are worth more than dollars. Your mama sounds like a wise woman. She is. And I think you are, too. That night, I sat at my kitchen table with a notepad and started writing. I wrote down everything I knew, everything I felt, everything I needed to do. By the time I finished, it was past midnight and I had a plan. The next morning, I called a lawyer. Not Darnell's corporate friend, but a woman named Angela Bryant, who'd been recommended by one of my church sisters. She was a black woman about 50 years old with kind eyes and a no-nonsense attitude. Mrs. Washington, before we talk about anything else, I need to know, are you being pressured to sell this property? By my children? Yes, but I'm not selling because they want me to. Good. Because once we accept this offer, assuming that's what you want to do, You need to be prepared for everyone and their cousin to come asking for money. Family especially. I'm already seeing that. She nodded. Here's what I recommend. We set up a trust, something that protects your assets and gives you control over how the money is distributed. We also set up an LLC to take ownership of the property for the sale, which will provide some privacy and tax benefits. And we make sure everything is airtight so nobody can claim you weren't in your right mind when you made these decisions. My children would do that? Angela looked at me over her glasses. Mrs. Washington, I've been practicing law for 25 years. I've seen families tear each other apart over far less money than $8 million. We're going to make sure that doesn't happen to you. Over the next few days, Angela and I worked on the legal paperwork. I didn't tell my children what I was doing. They kept calling, kept pushing, but I stayed firm. I'm still thinking about it, I'd say, which was technically true. On Friday, 5 days after Mr. Fletcher's visit, Brianna showed up at my house with all 3 of my grandchildren. Aaliyah was 10, Jordan was 8, and little Destiny was 5. They ran up to hug me, and my heart hurt because I loved these babies more than anything. Mama, the kids wanted to see you, Brianna said, all sweet like butter wouldn't melt in her mouth. They've missed their Grandma Dot. We had cookies and milk, and the kids told me about school and soccer and their new puppy. It was nice, normal, until Brianna sent them outside to play and sat down across from me with that serious expression. Mama, I need to be honest with you about something. Okay. We're in trouble. Financial trouble. My husband lost his job 3 months ago, and we're behind on the mortgage. If we don't catch up soon, we could lose the house. Tears welled up in her eyes, real ones this time. I didn't want to burden you with this, but if you sell that farm, if you could help us, just enough to get back on our feet? And there it was. The real reason for all the pressure, all the manipulation, she needed money. How much do you need? I asked. 50,000 would save us. Maybe a little more to give us some breathing room. I looked at my daughter, at this woman I'd raised to be strong and independent, and I saw fear in her eyes. Real fear. But I also saw the same pattern that had been going on for 30 years. Every time there was a crisis, Mama would fix it. Every time they made a mistake, Mama would bail them out. Brianna, I'm sorry you're going through this. I really am. But I can't keep rescuing you every time life gets hard. Her face changed, hardened. So you're going to let your daughter and grandchildren lose their home when you're about to have $8 million? I haven't decided to sell yet. Oh, come on, Mama. Of course you're going to sell them. You'd be crazy not to. And when you do, you're going to sit on all that money while your own family suffers? Your suffering isn't my responsibility, Brianna. You and your husband made choices that got you into this situation. You need to make choices to get yourselves out. She stood up so fast her chair scraped. I can't believe you. I can't believe how selfish you're being. Selfish? The word came out sharp. I'm selfish? I put you through college. I helped you buy your first car. I've babysat your children for free for 10 years. I've given you everything I had, and now when I finally have a chance to secure my own future, I'm selfish? That's different. That was you being a mother. This is you being vindictive because we didn't want you to keep some broken-down farm. Get out. What? I said get out of my house. Take your children and go. She stared at me like I'd slapped her, then grabbed her purse and stormed to the door. Fine. But don't come crying to me when you're old and alone and you realize you pushed away everyone who loved you. The door slammed. The kids came running back in, confused, asking why Mommy was upset. I hugged them, told them everything was okay, watched through the window as Brianna loaded them in the car and drove away, tires screeching. I stood in my empty house and felt 100 years old. That Sunday, exactly 1 week after Mr. Fletcher's first visit, I called him. Mrs. Washington, have you made a decision? I have. I'll sell you the farm for $8 million with one condition. What's that? My grandfather's grave is on the property, back in the old family cemetery. I want that half-acre excluded from the sale and access rights guaranteed in perpetuity." There was a pause. "I'll need to check with my partners, but I don't think that will be a problem. Can I ask why?" "Because some things," I said, thinking of Jamie's words, "are worth more than dollars." We agreed to meet Monday morning to begin the paperwork. I hung up the phone and sat in my quiet house, and for the first time in weeks, I felt at peace. And then my doorbell rang. I opened it to find all three of my children standing there with a man I didn't recognize, someone in an expensive suit with a briefcase. "Mama," Darnell said, and his voice was cold as ice. "This is Graham Peterson, our attorney. We need to talk to you about your mental competency and your fitness to handle your own financial affairs." My heart stopped. They were trying to have me declared incompetent. They were trying to take everything away from me. I looked at that lawyer standing on my porch, then at my 3 children behind him, and something inside me went cold and clear. This wasn't hurt anymore. This wasn't disappointment. This was war. "You have no right to be here," I said quietly. Graham Peterson smiled, the kind of smile a snake might give a mouse. "Mrs. Washington, your children are concerned about you. They've observed behavior that suggests you may not be capable of making sound financial decisions. Refusing an $8 million offer, becoming isolated from family, showing signs of paranoia and instability. Get off my porch." "Mama, please just listen," Kevin said, stepping forward. "We're doing this for your own good. You're not thinking clearly. You need help." I looked at my son, really looked at him, and saw a stranger wearing my child's face. "The only thing I need help with is getting you out of my house." "Mrs. Washington," the lawyer continued, "we can do this the easy way or the hard way. You can voluntarily agree to a psychological evaluation, or we can petition the court for a competency hearing. Either way, your children are prepared to show that you're not capable of managing your affairs." Angela Bryant's card was in my pocket. I'd been carrying it around all week like a talisman. I pulled it out now, pulled out my phone, and dialed her number right there on the porch. "Angela? It's Dorothy Washington. I need you at my house right now. My children are trying to have me declared incompetent." I gave her the address. "And Angela? Bring everything we prepared." I hung up and looked at Graham Peterson. "My lawyer will be here in 20 minutes. Until then, you're trespassing. You can wait in your car or you can leave, but you're not coming in my house." For the first time, the lawyer's smile faltered. Behind him, Brianna looked panicked. "Mama, you don't need a lawyer. This doesn't have to be a fight." "You made it a fight when you showed up here trying to take my rights away." "We're trying to protect you," Darnell shouted. "From what? From making my own decisions? From living my own life? Or from not giving you money?" The silence that followed was answer enough. I closed the door in their faces and locked it. Through the window, I watched them argue amongst themselves, watched the lawyer make phone calls, watched them pace my driveway like caged animals. My hands were shaking, but I didn't cry. I was done crying over them. Angela Bryant arrived in 18 minutes, pulling up in a silver Lexus with another woman beside her. They marched up to my door like generals going into battle. "Mrs. Washington, this is my colleague Diane Foster. She specializes in elder law and competency cases." Angela's eyes were sharp. "Now tell me everything." I told her about the farm, the inheritance, the pressure from my children, the developer's offer, and now this. Angela and Diane listened without interrupting, taking notes on their tablets. When I finished, Diane looked up. "Have you signed anything? Given them power of attorney? Any legal documents at all?" "Nothing. And I completed the psychological evaluation you recommended on Wednesday. Dr. Marcus said I was sharper than most 40-year-olds. Angela smiled fierce. "Good, because we're about to shut this down hard." She walked outside, Diane and I following, and addressed the lawyer with the kind of authority that made him take a step back. "I'm Angela Bryant, representing Mrs. Dorothy Washington. Your petition for competency evaluation is premature, unfounded, and frankly borders on elder abuse. My client has already undergone a voluntary psychological evaluation by Dr. James Marcus, a court-recognized expert who found her completely competent. We have documentation of her sound financial planning, including the establishment of a trust and LLC. We also have evidence that suggests this petition is motivated by financial interest rather than genuine concern. Graham Peterson's face went red. That's a serious accusation. It's a provable fact. Mrs. Washington's property is worth $8 million. Her children have been pressuring her to sell for months, have attempted to manipulate her through religious counsel, and are now trying to take control of her affairs immediately before a major financial transaction. The timeline alone speaks to motive. Brianna pushed forward. That's not true. We love our mother. Then why? Diane said coldly. Did none of you visit her for 3 months after she refused to sell the property? Why did you mock her inheritance? Why did you call her incompetent until the moment you learned it was worth millions? No one had an answer. Here's what's going to happen, Angela continued. You're going to withdraw your petition. If you don't, we'll file a countersuit for harassment and attempted financial exploitation. We'll subpoena phone records, emails, text messages, everything that shows the pattern of pressure and manipulation. And Mrs. Washington will sell her property, and you won't see a dime of it. You can't do that, Kevin said. She's our mother. Which is exactly why your behavior is so reprehensible, Angela said. Now get off this property before I call the police for trespassing. Graham Peterson grabbed his briefcase. This isn't over. Yes, Angela said. It is. They left. All of them. My children didn't even look at me as they walked away, just got in their cars and drove off like I was already dead to them. I invited Angela and Diane inside, made coffee with hands that wouldn't stop shaking. We sat at my kitchen table, the same table where this had all started a week ago, and I felt like I'd aged a decade. They really would have done it, I said. They really would have had me locked up or declared incompetent just to get that money. Yes, Angela said gently. They would have. And Mrs. Washington, I need you to understand something. This probably won't be the last attempt. Once that money hits your account, you'll need to be vigilant. What do you recommend? Over the next hour, they laid out a plan. The trust was already established, with me as the primary beneficiary and specific instructions for distribution after my death. We'd add a clause that anyone who contested my competency or the trust would be automatically disinherited. We'd also establish a medical directive naming Pastor Williams and Angela as decision-makers if I ever truly became incapacitated, cutting my children out entirely. It was harsh. It was brutal. But it was necessary. The sale went through 3 weeks later. I stood in the lawyer's office and signed paper after paper, my hand cramping from all the signatures. And then it was done. The farm that had been in my family for 5 generations was gone, transformed into a number in a bank account that didn't feel real. $8,200,000 after Angela's fees and taxes. More money than I'd ever imagined having. I cried that night. Not from happiness or regret, but from the sheer weight of it all. The loss of my family, the loss of the land, the loss of the illusion that blood meant loyalty. But I wasn't alone. Pastor Williams came by the next day, brought me a casserole, and sat with me while I processed everything. Your children called me, he said. They're very upset. I bet they are. They wanted me to convince you to share the money with them, to remember that family takes care of family. I laughed, bitter. What did you tell them? I told them that family works both ways, that you can't expect to receive what you weren't willing to give. He paused. Dorothy, I know this hurts, but you did the right thing. Then why does it feel so awful? Because love and disappointment can exist in the same heart. You can love your children and still recognize that they've treated you wrong. Both things are true. The church community rallied around me in ways I didn't expect. Sister Marlene brought by groceries. Brother Thompson helped me sort through some of Granddaddy's old things I'd kept in storage. The choir sent me a card signed by everyone. They didn't want anything from me. They just wanted me to know I wasn't alone. Jamie came by too, worried because I'd told him the farm was sold. Does this mean you won't need my help anymore? I looked at this sweet boy who'd worked so hard for so little and made a decision. Jamie, you said you wanted to study engineering, right? Yes, ma'am, but I can't afford. How much is tuition? Mrs. Washington, I wasn't asking. How much? He told me. It was $40,000 a year for the school he wanted to attend. 4 years, $160,000 total, plus living expenses. I'm going to pay for your education, I said. Full ride, all 4 years. His mouth fell open. I can't. That's too much. You worked on my property for months, never asked me for anything except fair pay, never had an agenda, or tried to manipulate me. You were kind when my own children were cruel. Let me do this for you. He cried. This big, strong young man cried right there in my living room, and I hugged him like he was my own. I'll pay you back, he promised. Every cent, I swear. You'll pay it forward, I corrected. Someday, when you're successful and someone needs help, you'll remember this and you'll help them. That's how we break the cycle of hurt. I set up scholarships at 3 local high schools for students who couldn't afford college. I donated to the church building fund they'd been struggling with for years. I paid off the medical debt of 5 families in my neighborhood who were drowning in bills. I kept most of the money safely invested, living off the interest, but I used enough of it to make a real difference in my community. And I cut my children off completely. It wasn't easy. Aaliyah called me crying, saying she missed me. Jordan sent me drawings from school. Little Destiny asked her mother why Grandma Dot didn't love them anymore. Those calls broke my heart into pieces. But I held firm. I told Brianna she could bring the children to visit, but she couldn't come inside. We could meet at the park, at the mall, at church, anywhere public. But she wasn't welcome in my home anymore. None of them were. This is cruel, she sobbed into the phone. You're punishing us for making a mistake. No, I said. I'm protecting myself from people who've shown me they'll hurt me for money. If you want a relationship with me, it won't involve my finances. Ever. Kevin tried a different approach. He showed up at church one Sunday, made a big public apology in front of everyone, talked about how he'd been wrong, how he'd let greed cloud his judgment, how he wanted to make things right. It was a good performance, very moving. People were crying. But I knew my son, knew that performance was all it was. After the service, he cornered me in the parking lot. Mama, I meant what I said. I'm sorry. Can we start over? Did you withdraw the competency petition? He shifted uncomfortably. That wasn't actually filed. Graham said it wouldn't go anywhere. But you tried. You stood on my porch and tried to have me declared insane so you could control my money. I was desperate. Brianna was about to lose her house. I'm drowning in debt from my business. Darnell's wife is threatening to leave him because of money problems. We all needed help and you just shut us out. I shut you out after you tried to take my rights away. After you treated me like I was stupid and worthless. After you showed me that the only thing you valued about me was my wallet. So you're really going to do this? Cut off your own children? Let us suffer when you have more money than you could ever spend? I looked at him, really looked at him, and felt nothing but sadness. Kevin, I hope you figure your life out. I hope you find a way to be happy. But I'm not your solution anymore. I'm not anyone's solution anymore. I'm just an old woman who wants to live her last years in peace. You're going to die alone, he said, vicious now that the performance had failed. Is that what you want? To die alone because you were too stubborn and bitter to forgive your family? If being alone is the price of self-respect, I said, then yes, that's exactly what I want. He left. They all left eventually. The calls became less frequent. then stopped altogether. I heard through church friends that Brianna's house went into foreclosure, that Kevin's business closed, that Darnell's wife did leave him. Part of me felt guilty, wondered if I should have helped, if I was being as selfish as they claimed. But then I'd remember Graham Peterson on my porch, remember them trying to take everything from me, and the guilt would fade. 6 months after the sale, I got a letter from a lawyer I didn't know. My heart sank, thinking it was another attack from my children. But it was something else entirely. The lawyer represented a woman named Patricia Moore, Granddaddy Clayton's daughter from his first marriage. A daughter I'd never known existed. We met at a coffee shop, this 75-year-old woman with Granddaddy's eyes and his smile. She told me her story, how her mother and Granddaddy had divorced when she was young, how she'd been raised in Chicago and lost touch with the Georgia family. "I read about the farm sale in the paper," she said. "That land should have been half mine. My lawyer says we have grounds to contest the will." My stomach dropped. Not again. Not another fight over money. But then Patricia smiled. "I'm not going to contest it. I don't need the money. I just wanted to meet you, to know my father's family. When I read about how you fought to keep that land, how you honored our history, I knew you were someone I wanted to know." We talked for hours. She told me stories about Granddaddy as a young man, things I'd never heard. I told her about his last years, about the farm, about everything that had happened. She held my hand when I cried, talking about my children. "Family isn't just blood," she said. "It's the people who show up, who care, who treat you right. Sounds like you've built yourself a better family than the one you were born with." She was right. I had Pastor Williams and the church community. I had Jamie, who called me every week from college to tell me about his classes. I had Sister Marlene and Brother Thompson and all the people who'd shown me more love in 6 months than my children had in years. And now I had Patricia, a sister I never knew I needed. A year after the sale, I was in my backyard planting tomatoes when my phone rang. It was a number I didn't recognize, but something made me answer. "Grandma Dot?" A young voice, shaking. "Aaliyah." "Baby? What's wrong?" "I'm at school and nobody came to pick me up. Mama was supposed to be here an hour ago, but she's not answering her phone and I'm scared." My heart clenched. "Where's your daddy?" "He's at work. I don't have his number. You're the only one in my phone besides Mama." I was in my car in 30 seconds. The school was 20 minutes away, and I drove there fighting every instinct that told me to protect myself, to stay away, to not get sucked back in. But this was my grandbaby, scared and alone. I found her sitting on the school steps, 10 years old and trying not to cry. When she saw me, she ran and threw her arms around my waist. "You came," she sobbed. "I knew you'd come." I took her home with me, made her hot chocolate, called Brianna's phone over and over until finally someone answered. It was a hospital. Brianna had been in a car accident. Not serious, but she had a concussion and they were keeping her overnight for observation. Her husband was on his way to the hospital and couldn't pick up Aaliyah until tomorrow. "I can keep her," I told the nurse. That night, Aaliyah and I made dinner together, watched a movie, and talked. Really talked. "Mom says you don't love us anymore," she said quietly during a commercial. "That you chose money over family." I took a deep breath. "Your mama and I had some disagreements about grown-up things, money stuff, and she made some choices that hurt me very badly. But you still have money, and we don't have anything. We had to move to a smaller house. Mom cries all the time. If you loved us, wouldn't you help?" How do you explain to a 10-year-old that love isn't the same as enabling? That helping people who've hurt you isn't kindness, it's self-destruction? "Aaliyah, I love you and your brothers more than anything in this world. But your mama is a grown woman who needs to take care of herself and her family. It's not my job to fix all her problems." "But you're her mom. Moms fix things. Moms teach their children how to fix things themselves. And sometimes that means letting them struggle so they can learn and grow. She thought about that. Mom says you're mean and selfish. I know she does. And maybe someday when you're older, you'll understand why I made the choices I did. But right now, all you need to know is that I love you. And I'm always here if you really need me. Like today? Like today. She fell asleep in my guest room, and I sat up watching her, this beautiful child caught in the middle of adult problems. In the morning, her father came to get her, wouldn't even come inside, just honked from the driveway. Aaliyah hugged me tight before she left. Thank you, Grandma Dot. I love you. I love you too, baby. After that, something shifted. My grandchildren started calling me occasionally, just to talk. Jordan would tell me about soccer. Destiny would babble about her kindergarten class. And Aaliyah, sweet Aaliyah, would sometimes call when things were hard at home, when her parents were fighting or money was tight, and I'd just listen. I never gave them money, never offered to fix their problems. But I gave them something more important, a safe place to be heard. 2 years after the farm sale, I got an invitation to Aaliyah's middle school graduation. Brianna had included a note. She asked if you could come. It would mean a lot to her. I almost didn't go. The wound was still fresh, the betrayal still stung. But this wasn't about Brianna or Kevin or Darnell. This was about Aaliyah. I sat in the back of the auditorium, watched my granddaughter walk across that stage, and when she waved at me from the podium, my heart swelled up so big I thought it might burst. After the ceremony, Aaliyah ran to me, introduced me to all her friends. This is my Grandma Dot. She's the coolest. Brianna stood off to the side, watching. When Aaliyah ran off to take pictures with friends, my daughter approached slowly, cautiously. Thank you for coming, she said. It meant a lot to her. I didn't come for you. I know. She looked down at her hands. Mama, I owe you an apology. A real one. Not because I want something from you, but because what I did was wrong. How I treated you was wrong. I let money turn me into someone I don't recognize, and I've spent the last 2 years trying to figure out how to be better. I waited, not sure if I believed her. I started therapy, she continued. Dealing with my financial anxiety, my control issues, my relationship with money. And I finally understand what you were trying to teach me, that my problems aren't your responsibility, that love isn't measured in dollars. And what brought on this revelation? She smiled, sad. Hitting rock bottom, losing the house, losing my marriage for a while, having to rebuild from nothing. It was hard, Mama. The hardest thing I've ever done, but it taught me more than a lifetime of you bailing me out ever could. Are you doing better now? We're managing. My husband got a new job, I'm working again, we're renting a small apartment, and slowly paying off our debts. It's not glamorous, but it's ours. We earned it. I looked at my daughter, really looked at her, and saw something different in her eyes. Something harder, but also more genuine. I'm proud of you, I said, and I meant it. She started crying. Really? Really. It takes strength to admit when you're wrong. It takes courage to rebuild without taking shortcuts. I don't expect you to forgive me, or trust me again. I just wanted you to know that I see what I did, and I'm sorry. I pulled her into a hug, felt her shake against me too. I forgive you, baby, but things can't go back to how they were. I know. And I still won't be your ATM. She laughed through her tears. I wouldn't want you to be. It wasn't a complete reconciliation. Trust doesn't rebuild overnight. But it was a start. Kevin never apologized. He sent me a Facebook message 2 years in, blaming me for his business failure and his divorce, saying I'd chosen money over family. I blocked him. Darnell sent a Christmas card every year with pictures of his kids and a passive-aggressive note about how hard things were. I sent one back with pictures of the community center I'd helped fund and the scholarship recipients who'd graduated college. I never wrote anything except Merry Christmas. Now, 4 years after that Sunday dinner when everything changed, I'm sitting on the porch of my new house, a modest 3-bedroom in a nice neighborhood. I kept the half-acre with Granddaddy's grave, had it beautifully maintained as a memorial garden. I visit every Sunday after church, bring flowers, tell him about my life. Jamie graduated last month, top of his engineering class. He's got a job with a major firm starting in the fall, making more money than I ever did as a nurse. He still calls me every week. Patricia and I take trips together, visiting places Granddaddy used to talk about. We're planning to go to New Orleans next month. My grandchildren come visit sometimes. Aaliyah is in high school now, thriving, talking about college. Jordan is finding himself. Destiny is 9 and calls me every Wednesday like clockwork. I have enough money to last the rest of my life and then some. I live simply, comfortably, and I spend my time doing things that matter. Volunteering at the community center, teaching financial literacy classes at the church, mentoring young women who remind me of who I used to be. And I'm happy, genuinely, deeply happy in a way I never was when I was trying to please everyone, trying to be what my children wanted me to be. Sometimes I think about what would have happened if I'd sold that farm for $5,000 like they wanted. If I'd never stood my ground, never learned my worth, never discovered that I could survive without their approval. I would have stayed small, stayed diminished, stayed trapped in a cycle of giving and giving until there was nothing left of me. Instead, I'm free. The farm may be gone, turned into shopping centers and parking lots. But what it gave me, the lessons it taught me, the strength it revealed in me, that's mine forever. And isn't that worth more than all the money in the world? Last week, Brianna brought the kids by for Sunday dinner. We ate pot roast and collard greens, just like old times, but different. Better. She didn't ask me for anything except how I was doing. She shared stories about her work, her struggles, her small victories. She treated me like a person, not an ATM. As they were leaving, she hugged me at the door. "Thank you, Mama, for not giving up on me, for teaching me the hard lessons I needed to learn." "That's what mothers do," I said. "No," she said. "That's what strong mothers do. Weak ones just give their children everything they want and call it love." I watched them drive away, my heart full, and thought about Granddaddy's note. "Dorothy will know what to do with it." He was right. Not because I sold the land for millions, but because I used that moment to reclaim myself, to draw boundaries, to choose peace over performance. The land gave me money, yes, but more importantly, it gave me freedom. And that's an inheritance worth keeping. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to subscribe and feel free to share your story in the comments. Your voice matters.